Hi and welcome to the Communications Department here at FBU Head Office. We're joined once again by the Union's General Secretary, Matt Rack. Matt, the pensions campaign that the Union's fighting is ongoing, but you've got some specific advice for our members about being a member of a Firefighters occupational scheme, yeah?
Yes, Sam. We're aware that because the new scheme is being imposed from April, people are asking all sorts of questions about their future, about their options. Should they opt out of the scheme they're in? Should they join the new scheme and so on? I think the very first point to make is this is a responsibility of central government and of the employers. They should be giving clear advice to people about what those choices are and what it means if people choose various things. That's not happening. We're aware that people are asking our officials questions, so we're taking steps to try and address those questions. And I suppose the first thing we would make, the first point we would make is this: that this is not our scheme that's been imposed. It's one which we've campaigned against, we've campaigned to improve, but it's now been imposed by the Westminster government and the other governments in the UK. But despite that, our view overall is that people are better off having a pension than not having a pension, and people are better off having an occupational pension than not having an occupational pension. And our job as a union is to make those pension schemes as good as possible, and we're doing that, as you say. But our general advice would be, therefore, that it's better not to opt out, and it's better to be in that scheme than not to be in it. Despite all the criticisms that we've made of it. So our advice to people would not be to opt out of that scheme.
Well, clearly feelings are running very high on fire stations where members are seeing their pensions effectively attacked. You see the specific pitfalls if members actually leave the occupational scheme. What are they and what would they mean for firefighters?
Well, people need to think very carefully that in most cases these decisions are likely to be irreversible. So that's something people need to think very, very carefully about, particularly if you're in relation to the old schemes, and probably most particularly in relation to the 1992 scheme. That's what's generally called the old FPS. And in relation to that scheme in particular, and there are thousands of members of it who are rightly very angry about what's happening to their pensions, but people need to remember that the deferred pension age is 60. A deferred member is someone who has left the scheme. So if anybody leaves, i.e. opts out of that scheme, they become a deferred member and their pension age automatically becomes 60. So they would not be able to access their benefits at the age at which they thought they could. It would be put off until 60. There are other pitfalls across the board. So, for example, people who pay pension contributions get tax relief on it. That would be lost if people chose to invest in some other means. Many of the benefits that still exist within the pension arrangements, absolutely vital ill health provision, for example, it's essential in the industry that we're working in that those provisions are there. Survivor benefits, those would be lost. So the whole range of benefits that would be lost by opting out. I think one thing people need to think very carefully about is the overall cost as well, and how that is shared between us and the employer. Because for every contribution our members make, the employers are also making a contribution as well. Even in the worst arrangements, that's the 2015 scheme, for every pound that a member puts in, the employers will be putting in £1.05 into that pension scheme. If you opt out, you lose the employer's contribution. So effectively, in a way, you're signing up to a pay cut by opting out of that scheme. So there's a whole host of reasons why people need to think very carefully, and if they want to look into it, to take specialist advice. We can't give individual financial advice, for example. People who want to think about investments and so on should seek specialist financial advice. But in terms of the general approach to occupational pension schemes, we would advise people, first of all, to think very carefully, and more generally, not to opt out of those schemes.
So firefighters are considering big decisions, and they're doing it against a confusing background.
Yeah.
Where can our members get their questions answered?
Well, just pick up on the point I made earlier. This is a responsibility of central government, and it's also a responsibility of the fire service employers. When you and I joined the fire service, we would be given booklets that would explain very clearly the pension provisions, certainly I remember sitting in a pensions lecture as a recruit firefighter, being told how the pension scheme worked, what you had to put in, what the employer put in, what the benefits were. That should be happening now, including all the options, all the risks if people choose certain of those options. That's not happening, and it's not surprising people are therefore very angry. That's why we've issued this circular earlier this week, dated 28th of January. We'd urge people to read that very carefully. We'd urge people to contact FBU reps. They may not be able to answer every question. They may have to refer that question up to their brigade officials. But we've also, within that circular, highlighted an email address where pension queries can come to. So we're trying to take all of those steps. And in addition to that, we're also working on pulling the most commonly asked questions together, and we'll do a question and answer type video to try and address all the issues that people are asking.
Matt, thanks. Some very clear advice there from the Union's General Secretary. Don't forget that email address, which can be found on our website at www.fbu.org.uk, along with various other updates. But once again, Matt, thanks very much.
Thanks, Tim.